Do you still remember Gu Yuan and Zhu Kun, who were separated from Xiao Yan? It turns out that they were not scattered by the spatial turbulence of the planes. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Continuing from the previous chapter, as the three figures of Wine Immortal Old Ghost appeared before Xiao Yan, Huangdi slowly spoke. "Sorry, you are a source of disaster, so we cannot let you live. However, considering that you are also somewhat talented, to show respect, I will deal with you using my strongest method." As his voice fell, under Xiao Yan's shocked gaze, a black spiritual power vortex formed behind Huangdi. Immediately afterward, a gigantic figure emerged. That was the desolate Dharma body, ranked 39th among the 99 supreme Dharma bodies. It is said that when the desolate Dharma body is fully unleashed, it can turn everything within 10 li into a land of absolute desolation. We will send you off as well. Wine Immortal Old Ghost and the black-clothed man exchanged glances. They each unleashed their own supreme Dharma bodies. Their power was not inferior in the slightest to Huangdi's desolate Dharma body. 3 supreme Dharma bodies. Thousands of Zhang tall were driven by the 3 of them, launching their most powerful attacks toward Xiao Yan, who was trapped inside the spatial cage. However, just as the attacks were about to land, the spatial cage where Xiao Yan was imprisoned suddenly vanished. It was as if it had evaporated into thin air. This strange scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble, and confusion filled their minds. What's going on? Where is Xiao Yan? However, in the next moment, the space where Xiao Yan had disappeared suddenly twisted. Watching the distorted space rapidly expand, Wine Immortal Old Ghost and the other 2 were shocked. A deadly sense of danger instantly enveloped their hearts. Soon after, their fear was confirmed. From the twisted space, a massive purple-gold dragon claw, nearly 100,000 Zhang large, shattered the void and emerged. It then directly slammed toward the 3 supreme Dharma bodies. At the same time, a terrifying pressure far surpassing the Earth's supreme realm spread throughout heaven and earth. That was the pressure of a Heaven Supreme expert. At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with disbelief, because the supreme Dharma bodies of Wine Immortal Old Ghost and the other 2 collapsed and exploded instantly under a single strike of that purple-gold dragon claw. Wine Immortal Old Ghost and the other 2 each spat out a mouthful of blood. Then the world fell into dead silence. Those were the supreme Dharma bodies of 3 mid-stage Earth Supreme experts exerting their full power. Yet they could not withstand a single strike from that dragon claw. In the silence, as the purple-gold dragon claw slowly withdrew back into the void, a voice filled with anger echoed across the heavens. "You dare to attack someone from my mother world. Consider those 3 supreme Dharma bodies the price." At this moment, everyone present gasped sharply. Living on the relic continent, they understood better than anyone the origin of that purple-gold dragon claw. That kind of pressure was almost the symbol of a certain race on the relic continent, the ancient Void Dragon tribe. Moreover, among the ancient Void Dragon tribe, only one person possessed such Heaven Supreme pressure. That person was the clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. A conflict between the 8 king domains and the Xuanling Hall had not only involved the ancient royal court, it had even drawn out the ancient Void Dragon tribe. This completely exceeded everyone's expectations. In the northern region of the relic continent, billions of miles away, there existed a vast territory formed by thousands of fragmented continents. This area was governed by one of the 3 overlords of the relic continent, the ancient Void Dragon tribe. It was one of the 4 great heavenly cities under their rule, the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Domain. Within the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Domain, there was a vast continent of immense size. This was the main continent of the ancient Void Dragon tribe, the ancient Dragon continent. In the skies above the ancient Dragon continent, groups of figures would occasionally roar past like giant dragons. They were the dragon guards of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. In this region, there were 9 dragon guard legions. The strength of each legion was enough to make ninth-grade Supreme Experts wary. If they united, even Earth Supreme Experts would find them troublesome. Under normal circumstances, only 3 Dragon Guard legions patrolled the ancient dragon continent. The remaining 6 were divided into 2 groups, rotating with the 3 on duty. But today, all 9 Dragon Guard legions had been mobilized. They formed a tight encirclement, sealing off an area tens of millions of Li around the ancient dragon continent. At this moment, the central region of the ancient dragon continent was even more bustling. The Dragon Emperor Plain. It was a vast plain spanning millions of Li. On the plain stood a purple-gold dragon statue millions of zhang tall. It was said to commemorate the Dragon Emperor ancestor who came in ancient times, from the mother world, the Du-Chi continent. And the current ruler of the ancient Void Dragon tribe was precisely the grandson of that Dragon Emperor ancestor. The ancient Void Dragon Hall stood before that enormous purple-gold dragon statue. This place was specifically used by the ancient Void Dragon tribe to receive guests. At this moment, on the Dragon Emperor Plain, hundreds of millions of ancient Void Dragon tribesmen had gathered, because a few days ago they had received an extremely shocking piece of news for the entire ancient Void Dragon tribe. The lower plane, where the ancestor of the ancient Void Dragon tribe came from, had been found. Among the people gathered on the Dragon Emperor Plain, some had even come from dozens of continents away. Aside from the patrolling Dragon Guards, one could say that all elites of the ancient Void Dragon tribe had gathered here. There were numerous Supreme Experts alone. They had come to witness this incomparably great moment for the ancient Void Dragon tribe. Before the ancient Void Dragon Hall, dozens of figures stood against the wind. They were all high-ranking elders of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. Among them, there were 5 Earth Supreme Experts. At the very top were the Grand Elder at the Quasi-Heaven Supreme level and the clan leader, an existence like a living fossil. However, the most eye-catching figures at this moment were not the clan leader, not the Grand Elder, nor those high-ranking elders. Instead, they were 4 figures whose auras did not appear particularly powerful. Among them, the strongest and oldest was the ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent who had been rescued from the inheritance space by Xiao Yan. In terms of seniority and age, even the current clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe was much younger than him. Standing beside the ancient heavenly serpent ancestor was Xiao Yan's wife Kai Lin. The ancient heavenly serpent ancestor and Kai Lin had arrived here 3 days ago, and their identities had shocked the entire ancient Void Dragon tribe. But after arriving here, not only were they astonished, even Kai Lin was somewhat surprised, because here she saw 2 seniors who had once come to the Great Thousand World with Xiao Yan, but were separated along the way. From them she learned that they had not been scattered by spatial turbulence, but instead had landed on a continent tens of millions of Li from here. That continent was also one of the fragmented continents of the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Domain. Later, they accidentally encountered a member of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. During their conversation, they revealed their identities. Afterward, the clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe personally sent an Earth Supreme Expert to bring them here, and those 2 who had been separated from Xiao Yan were Gu Yuan, father of Gu Shun'er, and Zhu Kun, the former clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe on the Du-Chi continent. At present, the only one still not found was Jun'er. At this moment, on the Dragon Emperor Plain, aside from Kailin Gu Yuan Zhu Kun and the rescued ancient heavenly serpent ancestor, the gazes of the hundreds of millions present were still waiting for the most important person to them. After several minutes of silent waiting, the space in the sky finally began to fluctuate. A spatial prison slowly appeared. Everyone's gaze was fixed upon it, as if they were looking at a god. Then, as the spatial prison shattered, a black-robed figure with a slightly surprised expression appeared in everyone's sight. It was Xiao Yan. When Xiao Yan descended upon the ancient Void Dragon tribe, do you know how grand the scene was? Hundreds of millions of people knelt on one knee, welcoming the ruler of the Duchy continent Flame Emperor. Continuing from the previous chapter, in mid-air, the 100-Jiang spatial prison instantly shattered into countless fragments of space. Xiao Yan appeared within it, his face filled with astonishment, looking at the overwhelming sight of endless crowds before him and feeling the dragon pressure of heaven and earth that seemed ready to penetrate his body. Xiao Yan was momentarily stunned. Just a moment ago, he had been trapped within the 8 king domains, preparing to fight to the death. Yet now the scene had suddenly changed. What replaced it was an entirely unfamiliar region. Xiao Yan quickly realized that he had been forcibly teleported through space. Therefore, he had to immediately confirm where he was. Soon afterward, 4 familiar auras entered his range of perception. Among them, the auras of Kai Lin and the ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent immediately allowed Xiao Yan to recognize the place. This was the ancient void dragon tribe on the relic continent. At this moment, there were 2 reasons why Xiao Yan stood stunned in mid-air. The first was that he had actually been teleported directly to the ancient void dragon tribe. The second was that, aside from Kai Lin and the ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent, the other 2 familiar auras belonged to people who had come to the Great Thousand World together with him, but had later been separated. They were the 2 seniors, Gu Yuan and Zhu Kun. Xiao Yan slowly descended from the sky. As he scanned the surroundings, he suddenly drew in a sharp breath. Looking at the vast sea of people gathered across the plains, Xiao Yan could guarantee that this was the most magnificent gathering of people he had ever seen. There were tens of thousands of supreme experts alone. As for the others of lower levels, their numbers were counted in the hundreds of millions. Within the Great Thousand World, where countless races stood side by side, the ancient Void Dragon tribe was considered a top-tier race. It was not inferior to the Luo God clan at its peak during ancient times. Just as Xiao Yan was organizing his thoughts, a voice filled with the dragon authority of heaven and earth suddenly rang out from ahead, echoing across the entire world. All descendants of the dragon tribe, welcome the ruler of the Daoqi continent. This voice was spoken by the clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. As the voice fell, Xiao Yan saw that among the hundreds of millions gathered around him, aside from the dozens of elders and the clan leader standing before the ancient Void Dragon Hall, everyone else knelt on one knee, and Xiao Yan became the center of attention as if stars were surrounding the moon. Welcome the ruler of the Duchy continent. Welcome the Flame Emperor. Welcome the Flame Emperor, ruler of the Duchy continent. The synchronized and thunderous voices of hundreds of millions of people echoed across heaven and earth. Even Xiao Yan himself was momentarily stunned. At this moment, the clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe stood before the ancient Void Dragon Hall, smiling. He had already learned from Kai Lin and the others how Xiao Yan had risen on the Duchy continent and become an unmatched overlord. Although the plains embryo of the continent had once belonged to him, he still held the utmost respect for Xiao Yan. In his opinion, calling Xiao Yan the ruler of the Daoqi continent was fully deserved. You have finally arrived. Several figures flew forward from the front and landed before Xiao Yan. They were Kai Lin and the others. Uncle Gu Yuan Senior Zhu Kun, how did you? Seeing the 2 of them, Xiao Yan hurriedly asked. He had always been worried that they might have encountered danger within the spatial turbulence between planes. Now that he saw them safe and sound, his worries were finally relieved. However, his heart suddenly tightened. What about Zuna? After we were separated from you, we landed on the relic continent. Zhu Kun shook his head as he replied, but it seems that Zuna did not fall in the same direction as us. Beside him, Gu Yuan also appeared somewhat worried. He had originally assumed that Zuna was together with Xiao Yan. However, when Kai Lin arrived at the ancient Void Dragon tribe and said there was still no news of Zuna, it caused Gu Yuan to become deeply concerned. Seeing this, Xiao Yan comforted them. Zuna should be fine. Before I advanced to Dodi, I refined a portion of her blood essence inside the heavenly tomb. If something were to happen to her in the Great Thousand World, the ancient clan Dodi bloodline she left within my body would react. But right now, that portion of Shuna's bloodline power within me remains completely stable. However, Xiao Yan paused slightly. Even with my current strength, I still cannot establish a sensing connection with her through that bloodline. It seems the distance between us is truly very far. Just as Xiao Yan finished speaking, a hearty laugh suddenly rang out from ahead. Hehe. As expected of the ruler of the mother world, to reach the Earth Supreme level at such a young age, a figure wearing a purple gold dragon robe descended from mid-air. He was Long Yuan, the clan leader of the ancient Void Dragon tribe. Following behind him were dozens of elders of the Dragon tribe. That battle just now, seeing Long Yuan and the others, Xiao Yan immediately stepped forward to ask. He knew that the person who had teleported him here through space was precisely Long Yuan, but his clash with the ancient royal court had only just begun. After he suddenly disappeared, would the 8 king domains be? The 3 blind old fellows of the ancient royal court have already been severely injured by me. Their supreme Dharma bodies were also destroyed. I believe they will no longer dare to invade the 8 king domains again. Long Yuan said calmly to Xiao Yan. There was not the slightest hint of arrogance in his tone. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was also greatly shocked. After all, Wine Immortal, Old Ghost, and the other 2 were genuine mid-stage Earth Supreme experts, and Long Yuan, who was hundreds of millions of miles away, could only use power that crossed space to deal with them. If what Long Yuan said was true, then his strength was truly terrifying. Hehe, you must be the child who once followed beside the Dragon Emperor, right? Suddenly, a voice spoke toward Long Yuan. This caused Long Yuan and the elders behind him to be momentarily stunned. Within the tribe, in terms of age, no one could surpass Long Yuan. Yet someone was now calling the ancient Long Yuan, who had existed for thousands of years, a child. The one who spoke was the ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent. However, he had not yet revealed his identity to the ancient Void Dragon tribe. Therefore, Long Yuan and the others had assumed he was a Do-Di expert who came from the Do-Chi continent together with Xiao Yan. Long Yuan was slightly startled. The ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent spoke again. No need to be surprised. I belong to the same era as your father, the Dragon Emperor. My survival was purely accidental. If it were not for Xiao Yan, you would not be able to see me today. Hearing this, Long Yuan's heart immediately trembled. His purple gold eyes focused upon the ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent. Although doing so was somewhat disrespectful, he needed to confirm the other party's true identity. Soon afterward, Long Yuan was shocked by the ancient presence he sensed. He searched through his memories regarding the Du-Chi continent. After a moment, this heaven supreme level Long Yuan suddenly knelt on one knee before the 9th grade supreme ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent. Greetings, ancestor of the heavenly serpent. Seeing this scene, the hundreds of millions of gazes across heaven and earth were filled with shock. But at this moment, Long Yuan himself was even more incredulous, because during the ancient catastrophe, aside from himself and another Grand Elder who had followed him to the true Dragon clan, he had believed that no one else survived. Rise. If the Dragon Emperor knew that the ancient Void Dragon tribe had developed to this level under your leadership, I believe he would rest in peace even in death, the ancestor of the ancient heavenly serpent said with a faint smile. As for past matters, I think we should set them aside for now. Since Xiao Yan has already arrived, we should tell him about it. Hearing this, Long Yuan finally came back to his senses. We have searched for the Du-Chi continent for 10,000 years, and suddenly you all arrived. I became too excited. What matter? Hearing their conversation, Xiao Yan was also stunned. Could it be that the seniors want me to open the passage back to the Do-Chi continent? Long Yuan explained. Returning to the Do-Chi continent is indeed very important. But before that, we should first go to another place. Where? To the ruins left behind after the destruction of the Emperor Alliance.